Hi, and welcome to this video, where I show you how I colored a page from Meine Reise durch Asien by Rita Berman. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Ina. If not, welcome back. This page is set in Vietnam, and I've planned a few color combinations in advance. For this, I'm using the 72 pieces set of Castle Art's gold colored pencils. I don't intend to use any additional pencils, but by layering these colors I can create more shades if needed. Okay, let's get started, and I tell you how I choose these colors. I begin with the water. The lines in the water representing movement are done in cobalt turquoise green. To choose the colors, I started by looking at photos of Vietnam to get a first impression. That's when I discovered the round boats, like the one in the foreground with the fruits. You might not immediately recognize it as a round boat unless you know. Until then, I wasn't aware that this shape would be practical for a boat. Then I began with the large areas. Which shades of blue do I want to use for the water? There's a lot of green, and I didn't want to limit myself to just one green combination, consisting of a single color with a corresponding highlight and shadow shade. Therefore, I came up with 3 combinations. By the way, I always use my swatches to see which colors I'd like to combine. I proceeded similarly with other large areas that had a clearly color to me. After gathering all the color combinations, I looked at the overall composition. I found it harmonious and realized that I could also use these combinations to color the remaining elements. Okay, after the turquoise stripes, I start with the darkest shade of blue, cerulean blue, at the back of the image, also darkening the corners at the front. Continuing with cerulean blue middle and finishing with the lightest blue cobalt turquoise, and all the water is complete. Next are the green tones and the rice terraces. Again, I start with the darkest shade, as almost always, leaf green deep, and use it for the grass on the small island with the house too. As the light comes from behind, the area near the house is the darkest, brightening towards the front, where more light reaches, and it's not in the shadow of the house. The second green shade is green pale, followed by the lightest shade leaf green light. While I'm at it, I also color the greens of the carrots and the pineapples. I leave a small white border around the island for adding sand later on the shore. I continue with a second green combination, cadmium green for the bushes, palm tree and bamboo. The next lighter shade is Prussian green, and then permanent green as the lightest of this combo. However, since it's too dark for me overall, I use leaf green light from the other combination for the highlighted edges. For the water lily leaves, I use my third green combo, leaning slightly bluish, starting with Terre Verde deep. I then used phthalo green and phthalo turquoise to color all the lily pads and stems, placing the darkest color in the center and lightening towards the edges. Now I use a brown combination for the jetty, starting with burnt umber to shade the darker areas. I also shade parts of the 3 houses with this and continue with sepia, applying it to one house only and to the door and wooden structure of another to create variety. The third brown shade is Chinese orange, which I also use like burnt umber and sepia for the palm trunk and the pole the boatman uses to push forward. The fourth and lightest brown is cinnamon. I intentionally leave the stripes on the pole light to highlight them in color later. Using yellow ochre, I color the rooftops' shaded areas, the ground of the rice terraces, another roof and house, as well as the boats and the heads of the two people. Next is terracotta light, and for highlights I apply Naples yellow. I also start the bananas with this and add lemon yellow light for their highlights. For the sun, I apply Naples yellow around the edges with normal opacity and lightly in the center, and adding highlights to mountain peaks and clouds. Even though it looks a bit like smoke, I treat it as clouds, since smoke would be on one side only, and there are two cloud formations. I use titanium white to fill the sun center, making it brighter. For the hair of the two people, I use burnt amber for shadows, followed by sepia. Now I begin the sky, aiming for a sunset look, since the sun is already under the mountain peaks, which extended beyond the edge of the picture. I start with Venetian red at the bottom, then peach, light peach, and cadmium orange light. For the clouds, I apply a light layer of cadmium orange light. Moving on to the mountains, I use Terre Verde in shaded areas, giving a slightly greenish tint to suggest moss or vegetation in Rita Berman's dashed and dotted sections. I added shadows with charcoal gray, then I use blue-gray and finally graphite light. Using the gray shades, I colored the stones, window and door frames of the small island house, as well as the roofs and walls of other houses on the rice terraces. I lightly blend over the clouds with the lightest gray and titanium white. For the carrots and pumpkins, I use cadmium orange deep as the darkest tone, then marigold and Naples yellow. The pineapples are done in yellow ochre, terracotta light, and Naples yellow again. Starting on the water lilies, I use grenadine for the darkest area, then coral deep and pink bloom for the lighter parts. The, let's call them checkered fish, are colored with Venetian red on the top, fading to gray below so they don't stand out too much, as we are not in a coral reef with vibrant fish. For this I use graphite light, and for the dotted fish a green-gray combination with Terre Verde, cadmium green and Prussian green. The baskets on the boat become also brown. At this point I review where I can reuse colors, bringing back the brown combo: burnt umber, sepia and cinnamon. I realize I missed part of the boat and a pineapple, which I now color, along with the inside of the watermelon, which I already colored in earlier when I used the green tones. I used the water lily colors for the flesh and lemon yellow light for the edge. Now onto these fruits. I believe they are mangoes. So I use Venetian red, marigold, Naples yellow, and leaf green light to create the gradient mangoes often have. The other round fruits are colored as oranges, using the carrot colors and Naples yellow. For the small round fruits I'm unsure about, I simply go with the reddish color, using grenadine and coral deep. In between, I've colored the larger stripes of the poking stick in beige. Now I return to the green combo for the stripes and the pants of the person in the foreground. I go over it with gray to desaturate the color of the clothes. I apply the same technique with the red combo on the back person's clothing and the sleeve pattern. For skin tones, I combine terracotta light and light peach, coloring the hands, the only visible skin parts. The object in the boat, which I think is a tarp, I color in blue. Then I apply a light layer of cinnamon to the last piece of clothing before going over both garments and the object in the boat to desaturate them with gray, so they visually recede. Finally, I add sparkle details. A green glitter gel pen for dots on the green fish. A red glitter gel pen to color over the lines on the other fish for a shimmering effect. I use Naples yellow to brighten the gray windows. And using a white secure gel pen to outline the clouds. I add dark green glitter to dots representing leaves on the bushes. And here's the final page. I hope you found this interesting and entertaining. Bye, and hopefully see you next time.